Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Gaming Den. My name is Moody, and today we'll be diving into the world of Elden Ring. A rich world filled with wonder, horror, and what feels like an endless supply of questions and mysteries to ponder. At times, it feels like every time you are able to answer one question, another mystery simply takes its place in turn, diving deeper into a shrouded enigma like Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole. And us fans are all for it. Today, we'll be talking about one of the Lands Between's favorite waifus past, Ranni the Witch. What began as a simple question to start off another list video, slowly unraveled into something much bigger than I had anticipated, and grew into a full-on journey that had me digging through various locations, NPCs, and items to get to the bottom of one question. Who is Ranni's secret mentor? A long time ago, on a dark night, when the Carian princess was just a young girl, she journeyed off on her own, deep into the forest. As she traveled deeper, she felt a sudden change in temperature, a cold presence. Before her stood the old Snow Witch. A chance encounter or fate, whatever it may be, that orchestrated their meeting, this moment would forever change the course of a young Carian star's. Little Ranni had met her mentor, someone she would hold in very high regard and would idolize, thus eventually making herself in the very image of the old Snow Witch. But for one as important and had such a great impact on the Carian princess, there is an equally large mystery that has covered it up. Who is she? What is amazing is we truly don't know much about her, but this may all be part of some grand design, because if there is one thing that is certain, is the fact that the old Snow Witch wasn't just Ranni's mentor, but in fact, a secret mentor. We know of her existence only through a brief description through Ranni's armor set and a handful of cold spells the witch had imparted to Ranni. To be frank, she's never directly mentioned once, nor does Ranni or anyone ever bring her up in dialogue. Which, let's be real, to survive in the world of Elden Ring, secrecy is as necessary as breathing. And if there is someone who is excellent at that, that would be none other than Ranni, who, let's just say, is pretty good at keeping a secret.
The rune of death was stolen, and the demigods began to fall, starting with Godwyn the Golden. But by whom? And why?
Yet the question stands. Why was it a secret in the first place? Let's begin our investigation. Witch's pointed hat, frigid and frozen through, of a style associated with practitioners of heretical sorcery, strengthens cold sorcery. Witch's robe and skirt in the color of snow, once worn by the snowy crone who the young Ranni encountered deep in the woods. She was a witch and well versed in cold sorceries. It is said that the doll that houses Ranni's soul was modeled after her. That old witch was Ranni's secret mentor. There are only 5 cold spells that exist in the game, and 3 of the 5 are spells that can be learned through syllabus.
What are you buying? What are you selling?
Who learned them via Ranni, who was taught these by the old Snow Witch. As implied in the description, sorcery said to have been used by the old Snow Witch. An interesting point that I do want to focus on is this bit of information. The snowy crone taught the young Ranni to fear the dark moon as she imparted her cold sorcery. I wanted to highlight the most intriguing thing that caught my attention in the description is that she taught Ranni to fear the dark moon. This lingered with me because this is the only time the concept of the moon is mentioned as a negative. We will be returning to this point later, so keep that in the back of your mind. For the other two ice spells, one of them was concocted by none other than Adula the Glintstone Dragon. The other is the Zamor Ice Storm, who were mortal enemies of the Fire Giant and heroes that helped Marika defeat the giants. Apart from those, there isn't any other trace of code spells in the entire game. The reason I bring up the other spells is to see if we can learn anything more about frost magic. Usually, practices of any kind in the lands between have a heritage that can be traced down to a certain point. A perfect example can be shown in the case of Adula the Glintstone Dragon. The dragon had a diet consisting of devouring sorcerers, and due to this, we can see his body is physically being afflicted with glintstone, growing throughout his entire body. But as a result, this explains his ability to cast spells and the color of his flame breath. When we acquire Adula's Moonblade, we've come to learn prior to our time in the lands between, Adula at some point had fought with Ranni. Maybe because he was devouring all those sorcerers, but it could be many other things really, was he is eventually bested by Ranni in combat. And after tasting defeat, he would in turn swear his allegiance to her as one of her knights. Which is why we are here now looking at his spell. This means that the spell was a creation to represent his new oath to serve Ranni by wielding the carrion spell that gave sorcerers the strength of knights. With a little frostbite to show where his loyalties lie. The spell's description helps to paint a story and tell us about Adula, who he was, and with that, Drakes as a whole. After reading that, the other Drake stories you can pick up in your journey, we can no longer look at the dragons that roam around the lands as simply wild and mindless beasts. They are quite the opposite, with high intelligence, a consciousness, and a will to act on their own. There are even more revelations about Drakes specifically in the DLC that teach us that there is a lot more to the Drakes than we previously thought. But that is for another video. But these are the kind of threads I'm talking about. It allows you to paint a bigger picture of the world we are playing in and learn more about the history of the world. That's what I find so strange about the old Snow Witch, is that there really is nothing like that for her. A breadcrumb trail of information that slowly builds up as you collect more and more details, till it crescendos to a moment of deeper discovery. But for her, it is quite the opposite. She has no areas, no items, or dialogue
You are maidenless.
that draws a connection to the old Snow Witch's origin. We know she must have lived in Liurnia of the Lakes, but the actual forest where Ranni and her met is still unknown. The only point of reference comes from one point of origin, and that is Ranni herself. Here are some questions about Ranni's encounter with the witch I just wonder about. I could always believe Ranni was clever enough to sneak away when she was young, but I struggle to imagine someone considered royalty to be able to wander without constant watch or security. It's not that I don't buy it. I'm trying to wrap my head around it and how she did it. Maybe she was young, but not too young to be incapable of taking care of herself, because as the story goes, she ends up meeting with the witch deep in the forest, and like all the fairy tales tell children, this is a big no-no. Good thing it wasn't someone with bad intentions. Another question I ponder is, since the witch became her mentor, what is the time span of their secret meeting? Was it a year of running off alone in the woods? Weekly perhaps, every full moon? Or maybe just a handful of encounters? Or even one time? I don't know, and I don't know if these questions will ever be answered, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on how it happened in the comments section below. And again, what forest could they be talking about? FromSoft has the knack or ability to hide information that is staring right in front of you. In regards to the Snow Witch, maybe one of the ways the mystery has eluded us for so long is the way the truth is hidden right in front of us. One of the only descriptions given to the mystery is the Snow Witch is an old crone that lives in the forest. But what if I told you that her description may be hiding another meaning, a possible misdirection? What if the misdirection stems from the association of the old witch in the woods archetype? Because this is a very common story beat. Our assumptions of this type of character are established before we can assess it further. Old witch in the woods? Oh, and she's ugly? Shocking. But the case I'm trying to argue is, what if her being ugly isn't just implying her age, but describing something that you consider ugly via being disfigured or abnormal? What could the Snow Witch be? If it is describing her as a crone and implying that she is, as they say, unyielding to one's sight. Here's a thought. Maybe she may not even be human. A lesser kindred of rot? Under Raya Lucaria is the Lake of Rot, where we do see the pests roaming about. That is relatively close, yet it feels like more of a stretch than a compelling point, though they do possess multiple arms, but as you can tell, way more than 4. Plus, we have never really seen any pests perform or use witchcraft. For a moment it felt like a possibility, but just by those points, it really doesn't add up at all. But what if she was a revenant? Funny enough, the two carry a lot more in common than you would think. If this were the case, what if this is the reason we can't find info on her? She might be part of a people, or was one of many who died to whatever happened in Liurnia Lake. A flood? Liurnia stands now as a dilapidated state of what it once was, overrun by crustacean and haunted by a large amount of revenant. And what's crazy is the revenant, upon comparison, possess a lot of similarities to our snow crone. Let's begin with the surface details, the skin tone. Essentially, the skin is depicted as rotten flesh. Nevertheless, it is of the color blue. And also, They literally possess multiple arms, unlike someone who's grafted that showed distinct features that the body parts were attached. Revenant limbs look more like they're growing body parts. It's a little hard to see in a fight, but here is a close-up. She just might have been a Wraith. I think whoever made the doll did take some artistic liberties to not necessarily do our Carian princess dirty and do a one-to-one of the snow crone, since the face very much resembles that of a beautiful woman and not that of an old crone. Yet the description of her hat says it is modeled after the Snow Witch. Similarly, her skin a moonlit blue, smooth, rather than the Wraith skin of blue and rotten in nature. Ranni's doll form exudes life rather than the loss of it. The other way I look at it is how artists in the medieval days would hear about animals from a faraway land and attempt to depict them without any real source to work with. Being a secret mentor, it's easy to imagine that they had to work with what they heard rather than what they saw. Being a revenant would explain the fact why no one knows about her, and also add to how Ranni was able to meet her in secret too, since we know wraiths are capable of appearing and disappearing at will. Also note, being a sorcerer also gives you the ability, since we see Ranni do this when we first meet her, and so does Selen if you try to kill her. You monster. Another cool trick Ranni does when first meeting you is casting a spell to put old Merchant Kale and Donkey to sleep before speaking with you. Maybe something she learned from her secret mentor. Another thing revenants make a good argument for is the crone aspect. The definition of a crone is an ugly woman. What if this is describing her extra limbs and as well as how disfigured the revenants look? Let's be honest, this thing in real life would be nightmare fuel. When you list off the similarities, it starts to feel like it really adds up. The revenant theory also explains why we may not know much about the Snow Crone Witch. Whoever she was, she and her clan may have been casualties of an event before our arrival to the lands between. Wraith or even ghosts are spirits with unfinished business. And I know I'm really jumping the gun by saying this, but maybe passing on her knowledge and teaching to Ranni was her way of fulfilling what she needed to do before she moved on. Another cold-related move that is not a spell but a skill, the Ash of War, Hoarfrost Stomp. What makes this skill enticing to our case, it is acquired in Liurnia as well. And where specifically do we find the Stomp? Dropped by a Scarab, but not just an ordinary one, but an invisible one. This is some big speculation coming from me. An invisible technique that is found right by Carian Manor, where a little Ranni could have played, aka gone to meet a certain secret mentor. Just felt too on the nose to be just coincidence. I looked into another frost related item, and it did lead me to a nice surprise. But on second thought, it isn't such a surprise. It led me to a troll of renowned respect and talent war counselor, babysitter of young Ranni, E.G., had crafted the frozen needle. This unique item can be found tucked away in secret just beside him in the King's Realm ruins, oddly enough being protected by a royal revenant. Got anything to say about this, E.G.? I expect nothing less of Ranni's war counselor. Maybe what we could be dealing with when it comes to ice magic is that it is an older kind of magic. It is said that Renna charmed the academy with her lunar magic and established the house of Caria as royalty. I wonder if this changed the trajectory of the academy and its pursuit for knowledge prior to looking up at the stars. They may have originally been focused on other forms of witchcraft. To go back to the peculiar item E.G. forged, the frozen needle, this sheds some light on E.G.'s specific and rare knowledge of the craft. Remember, Jaren has mentioned that only E.G. could craft weapons that were capable of repelling scarlet rot, corrosiveness to weapons, something Millennia's soldiers couldn't do themselves without spells or incantations. E.G. seemed to carry some unique knowledge that is rare and, dare I say, older and hailed maybe from a similar field that the Snow Witch may have been part of long ago. This isn't a definitive, but it feels like it is making some kind of connection. Running with the theory that cold spells are an older form of magic, there is another group we can look to add fuel to this fire: the Zamor warriors. Unsurprisingly, they also are a people shrouded in mystery, and like E.G. and the witch, they are also from ancient times. Trolls, dragons, and the Zamor, those who have lived, as the Zamor describe it, since a time immemorial, before America, before the Golden Order. And if we look closely at the hair of the Zamor, braids. This is the lead we are looking for, breadcrumb trails that lead us all the way back to the very beginning. The divine beast dancing lion were said to be able to perform rituals of the lion dance that allowed them to become messengers of the very heavens. Only the greatest of them could tap into the heavens. The dancers were able to tap into the power such as wind, thunder, and just like another ancient, and most importantly to this case, frost. We know by seeing the divine beast use frost spells that it can be dated back all the way to the time when Hornsents were the rulers of the land. The divine beast represented one of the highest positions of honor and freely used ice magic. Come full circle to today, and the Snow Witch is labeled a heretic. With the fall of the Hornsent and the new age of the Golden Order, history has changed its opinion on the use of such magic. The Hornsent were once considered to be those chosen by God, demonstrated by the horns they were gifted by divinity. Now, in the eyes of the Golden Order, they are labeled a omen curse, banished to live underground, hidden from the world.
The Erd Tree wards off all who deign approach. We are all forsaken.
So must be the fate of those who practice the heretic arts of frost magic, even if it may have been their heritage. Within the walls of Raya Lucaria Academy, they have portraits of all the conspectus that did something significant to commemorate their accomplishments in their fields. But what's interesting, I didn't notice till now, is that Selen, Azure, and Lucette portraits still hang in the Academy. All three of them are exiled or banished from Raya Lucaria. Yet, their portraits remain. Now why would that be? You would think that they would have removed them from the walls by now, but here they are, not in secret, not in a hidden area. In fact, they are clearly celebrated and admired. It seems that regardless in this institution, whether you've done something truly great or truly heinous, as long as it is a discovery, you are granted recognition.
Now, most hearts couldn't withstand this voltage. But I'm fairly certain your heart...
What was noise?
The sound of progress, my friend. Kill me. Later.
Hush, little Calva. I'll soon birth thee anew. A sweeting, fresh and pure.
By the time we arrived at Raya Lucaria, the Queen of the Full Moon, Renna, has already lost her mind and has been locked away in the library by her people who have rebelled against her and deemed her no longer a champion. And yet, here we see her portrait up for all to witness in full glory, her staff, her legacy. What I am getting at is the sorcerers are for knowledge, good or bad, scientific if you like, until they are not. There is an exception to this rule, it seems, and we see this with the Blood Mage, Mad Tongue Alberic. And strange is that his practice is in support of another celestial star, which you would think the Carians would be in support of another kind of magic that looks to the stars. That star was called the Blood Star. It is a fact that the Blood Mage practices is known to the Academy, and strange, it is described as reviled by the Academy. The guilty, their eyes gouged by thorns, lived in eternal darkness. There, they discovered the Blood Star. So maybe the Academy is biased to certain space studies, and not into all the blood stuff, and probably the killings as well. But why? Well, I'm not sure. Maybe there's a fundamental difference in the practices that may have caused conflict. Yet this is why I mentioned those conspectus, who were exiled from the school for their pursuit of the primeval source. That resulted in the loss of sorcerers. Yet here they stay on the very walls to be revered and celebrated. Why treat the Blood Star any different? Do you remember your duel with the Blood Mage? It may have been a while since you've last fought the Mad Tongue Alberic, but you might have forgotten what other kinds of spells he was capable of using. Frost spells. Those who didn't have access to Raya Lucaria seemed to have no problem with each other, that they would share sorceries with each other, as evident with Mad Tongue ability to use cold spells. The definition of a heretic described through Google states, a person believing in or practicing religious heresy. But the second point states, a person holding an opinion at the odds with what is generally accepted. Like America had done to the Hornsent, are we being told a rewritten history? A history written by Renna, a paradigm shift by the strongest sorcery academy in the lands between. A place that cast a protective seal that isolated itself and focuses on their own practices, all the while the shattering had occurred. Maybe shunning all the other practices they kept outside its walls, deeming them heretical. But the question still remains, what would they gain by ousting these kinds of sorceries? If the pursuit is knowledge and gaining better understanding of magic, why would you limit yourself? The Battle Mage robe tells us a tale of how, whenever war broke out and the academy sealed its gates, only Haimas, scholars, dared to venture outside. Seclusion is no way to foster discovery. It is only a convenient form of escape. Maybe we need to look at this differently, and instead of asking what they could gain, what could they have lost by bringing these sorceries into the academy? I wonder if this was Renna's doing. The moon was encountered by a young Ranni, led by the hand of her mother, Renna. What she beheld was cold, dark, and veiled in occult mystery. Funny enough, an odd thing is that the old Snow Witch taught the young Ranni to fear the dark moon as she imparted her cold sorcery. If you were the queen of the full moon and your whole thing was about the moon, would you want your daughter to meet with someone who goes against your belief? Especially after Renna, by her hand, led Ranni to encounter the moon. Ranni was to be the next queen of the full moon. We know now from the DLC, Shadow of the Erd Tree, that Renna's sister, Rolana, was capable of the twin moon spell. But as the story goes, her heart would lead her elsewhere, and abandon her lineage, and follow Mesmer instead, into eternal shadow. That leaves Ranni to be the only chance for the lunar lineage to continue. We know in the story that Ranni's brothers do not care, nor have plans to do such things. And even more telling is that Ranni does take the Snow Witch's advice. In the game, Ranni never teaches you the Dark Moon spell. Unlike Renna's full moon, you can learn that through her remembrance. Ranni will never offer to teach you her Dark Moon spell. You can go through her entire quest all the way to the finale, to a 1,000-year voyage under the wisdom of the moon, and still never receive it. In fact, you have to go out of your way and unlock it. Tucked away in Shallona's Rise, it is blocked from entrance by a spell. Such a powerful and important item being locked away and completely missable implies that she did in fact listen to the Snow Witch's advice. Let's not forget that the Snow Witch was able to get close to a Carian royal undetected. In plain English, the witch got past two of the most powerful people in all of Elden Ring. Ranni's dad being Radigan, which also means America, as well as her mother, Queen Renala. I cannot stress that one does not simply pass people of such strength. And of all the people to encounter in the woods, but a Carian princess just seems more of a calculated accident than just happenstance. But the most glaring thing of all of this, how would a random witch in the forest even know about anything regarding the powers of the moon, enough to warn a young Ranni to be wary of it? This is no random encounter at all. This is someone who has deeper ties with the power of the moon, taking action, and with that, there could only be one direction to look at. Whoever they are, the only ones with a connection to the moon in the lands between is, and are, the Carians.
This way, Tarnished. May I have a word?
When we first meet Ranni, we didn't know who she was, so she presented herself as who she appeared to be, which was none other than the Snow Witch we've been searching for.
A pleasure to meet thee, Tarnished. I am the witch Renna.
Families in Elden Ring show relation to kin by having their names spelled very similarly. Renna, the mother of the queen. Since we know Renna chose to leave her lineage, as described on her helm, Renala, head of the royal family of Caria, was said to have given her younger sister, who renounced her lineage, to chase after Mesmer, a gift of lustrous black hair. This can stand as to reason why we never knew about Renna until the DLC arrived, and we went to war with Mesmer. Renala honored her choice and cut ties with her. Yet within Castle Ensis, Renna's castle, we see that she has Renna, Renala, and herself depicted, and implies that they were all here at one point together. The fact that we have no history on Renna, especially within their home, the Carian Manor, this is amplified by the fact that beyond the Caria Manor lies Ranni's rise, Selvius's, but most importantly, Renna's very own rise.
Lady Ranni has departed on her journey from Renna's rise, as she calls it.
Like a black sheep, she's there, but never mentioned. It feels as though if it were all up to Renala, we would have never learned about Renna in the first place. The young astrologer gazed at the night sky as she walked. She had always chased the stars every step of her journey. Then she met the full moon. And in time, the astrologer would become a queen. The Carians were not originally lunar witches. It was only when the young Renala and Renna met the moon on that fateful night that the Carians become who we know them as today. Prior to them, there was a mother who practiced in cold sorcery, but now labeled a practitioner of heretic magic. She is forgotten and abandoned, remembered only by a sister who would remain trapped in another forgotten realm of shadow, and abandoned by a daughter who rules as the queen of the full moon. With no choice, she is relegated to live alone as the snow crone deep in the woods. But if there's one thing Carians possess, it is a strong passion. The passion to carry one's ambition and turn it into a kingdom. and also drive them mad. The passion to abandon a lineage and follow those you care for to the ends of the earth. That same passion would make a witch do what was necessary to make sure that a young Carian princess was given all the help a grandmother could bestow upon her. I don't think she ever needed anything in return. All she needed to know was she gave that young girl what she needed to make it in this world. Because the world is cruel, and if secret lessons in the woods from an old snow witch is what's going to give her the edge, and being erased from the face of this earth is the price to pay, then let the passion take you. For a Carian's love is that of the size of the moon and the night sky itself. And Ranni herself was no different. Even though her mother and grandmother may have had their differences, Ranni showed her love and care for both of them in what way she could. For her mom, she would cast a spell to protect her at her weakest state. Anyone who dared disturb her mother would trigger a protective spell cast by Ranni that would create a projection of Prime Renala, proudly displaying her mother's strength. Before Radagon had left her, she never forgot who her mother was, and she wanted to make sure that those who disturbed her knew.
Foul trespasser, send word far and wide of the last queen of Caria.
And for Renna, the Snow Witch, Ranni's mom tried her best effort to erase her from existence. But to wipe someone from history is not only kill them, but is to make it like they were never born. And the Full Moon Queen almost made it happen. But because of the Snow Crone's actions of taking care of the young Carian princess, we will forever know she existed. All you have to do is take a look at Ranni, and you will see her there standing before you. Like a daughter, Ranni now embodies the image of the Snow Crone who lived once ago. Renna the Snow Witch will live on forever. They were two sides of the same coin, doing what they believed would help Ranni succeed. Two different paths, both out of love and care. The two sides built a strong foundation for Ranni to thrive and become the witch she is today. And through that, crafted her very own path. A path that would break her from the fate she was born into. By fingers who pulled the strings. They both succeeded. And as a result, Ranni was no longer a puppet on a string.
To every living being and every living soul, now cometh the age of the stars. 1,000-year voyage under the wisdom of the moon. Here beginneth the chill night that encompasses all, reaching the great beyond. Into fear, doubt, and loneliness, as the path stretcheth into darkness. Well then, shall we?